We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome, everybody, to the weekly First Call podcast presented by First Bet and Express Bet. Jeremy Plonk and Jeff Siegel with you each week to take a look at 8 weekend stakes races around the country. Of course, it's prime time Saratoga and Del Mar right now. We'll also get an oddball, if you will, for August at Churchill Downs, where the Arlington Million makes its first appearance, not in Chicago, but in Louisville. Jeff Siegel, welcome into the program as we get set to handicap a little bit of a curveball this week.
Yeah. By the way, I had kind of forgotten about the Long Acres Mile, since Long Acres, the racetrack, doesn't exist anymore. Doesn't really, I don't know. I don't associate it with Emerald Downs, but I know John White is from that area. That's his favorite race. So we'll hear about that, and certainly worth playing. But we've got Churchill Downs, and you talk about the oddball, and Beverly D. Arlington Million. I've won an Arlington Million in the past, and it was Saratoga back in '93, and that race is very dear to me. So I'm glad they're running it, although this is kind of a weird spot. And it also used to attract so many of these great Euros, and I don't see any. So
right.
I don't know. It's not quite what I expected. But I'm still glad they're keeping it going, even in this state, because it was a great race, and Beverly D itself. So it's part of the program. Let's see if we can make some money with it. That's the main thing.
You can't just drop something like, I won the Arlington Million and leave it there, Jeff. So let's go back to that a little bit. Saratoga, your horse who won the Arlington Million. Give us some memories of that day from somebody who's won it firsthand.
Funny thing is, we were in we had a rival, a horse by the name of Lure.
Sure.
And the one thing I do remember is that there was a $1 million bonus, not involving the Arlington Million, but there were 3 grass races, 2 in New York and then 1 in Atlantic City. And if you swept all 3 races, then you got that $1 million bonus. So we ran against Lure, and we denied Lure the $1 million bonus because we were able to beat him in Atlantic City in the United Nations. And I remember talking with my partner Barry. We were going in there, and I was saying, "Look, we can beat Lure, but if we do, it costs him the $1 million. Nobody else gets it." So I said, maybe we give Shug a call and say, "Look, we'll let you win if you give us half of that $1 million." We didn't get that far, so we ended up winning the race anyway. And then we were kind of looking forward to running against him again in the Arlington Million. But Lure is a terrible off-track, soft track turf horse, and it rained like cats and dogs that day, and they scratched him. Won that race, and then he continued on and won another race in New York. So I mean, that was the best horse I think I ever owned, actually. Saratoga, and winning the Arlington Million was a great thrill. The other thing I remember is they gave me a beautiful gold watch as one of the owners for Saratoga. The thing never worked. I mean, it stopped and started. I got it fixed. It still wasn't working. I kept it as a keepsake, but I never wore it because it never told the proper time. I don't know.
Well, we've been reminded in recent weeks and months that no clock in horse racing works, Jeff.
Right. Well, that was the first
So
indication of what might be in store for horse players with returns regarding times and clocks and anything like that. But I remember what you talked about. You're watching the first Arlington Million, right?
Yeah.
And that was the Bart and John Henry, and that was a great race. And I remember cashing a huge bet a few years later on teleprompter, shipping over from Europe. So this race is really, really good, and it's not maybe what it used to be, but it's still a decent, solid race, and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, let's sync our watches to what's going to happen on the podcast today, and hopefully we keep good time with previews of the Beverly D and Arlington Million, 2 of the 4 stakes races Saturday at Churchill Downs. We'll then take you to Saratoga for a pair of stakes races on Saturday. Jeff and I will preview the Saratoga Special for the 2-year-olds, the 4-star day for the milers. That's going to draw horses away from the Arlington Million, running those 2 grade 1s on the same day. At Del Mar Saturday, they've got the Yellow Ribbon in the Filly Mare Turf division, the Sorrento in the Juvenile Fillies division. So 2 stakes races at Del Mar that we'll take a look at. And then on Sunday, Jeff and I will preview turf sprinters in the Mahoney at Saratoga, and at Del Mar, the 2-year-old colts in the Best Pal Stakes. We'll also check in with John White, our handicapping correspondent at First Bet and Express Bet, as he'll give us the picks that he has for the Longacre Mile on Sunday. Before we talk about our Saturday handicapping this week on the podcast, I also want to remind harness fans a big race tonight. We tape our podcast on Fridays now. Friday night at Hoosier Park, it's the Dan Patch, one of the top races in the Midwest and one of the top races in standardbred racing throughout the entire year. The Dan Patch tonight at Hoosier Park, I believe race 14 on the card. Be sure to check out our harness handicapper, Al Samaglia. He's got his blog up and ready at expressbet.com in the blog section. Get set for the big one tonight, the Dan Patch. And if you want to get set for every day's racing, we've got a new feature with First Bet and Express Bet in our blog sections. Be sure to check out the first post. Each morning it's posted by 11 a.m. It'll give you all the big information you need for a racing day, where the carryovers are, where the feature races are, best bets of the day from the First Bet AI, links to all of our editorial picks content like Jeff's daily blogs for Saratoga and Del Mar, Al Samaglia's harness picks, all that information put together. BetMix has a algorithm that determines which races are most likely to produce long shot winners. You'll get the 3 most likely long shot races of the day. That's all in the first post blog. So be sure to check that out. It'll be on the blog section at expressbet.com and at news.first.com in the news section on the First Bet website as well. So be sure to check out First Post each and every racing day, posted by 11 a.m. Fridays is already up and ready to go. So check it out and see why you should play today. Let's get action going for Saturday in our first stakes handicapping coming up this week on the First Bet podcast. The Beverly D at Churchill Downs, named for Beverly Duchessois, the first lady of Arlington Park, if you will. Churchill Downs Grade 1 Beverly D, hosted in Louisville for the first time, drew just a field of 5, Jeff Siegel, Dalika, Family Way, Princess Grace, Rougier, and the European 3-year-old filly for Aidan O'Brien coming across the pond in Lily Pond. 5 to go in here. Tell us what you think of the Beverly D.
Well, I originally defaulted to the Euro Lily Pond. I went back and watched her race at Cura. It was the Grade 2 race back last month, and I really wanted to like her. The field kind of finished in a heap, and she was good, but she wasn't great. You know, it was okay, but nothing that I would expect her to come over and dominate. So I ended up going back with Princess Grace, a filly that a mare now. I've always liked her, obviously. She's won 7 out of 11. Very rusty in her comeback 2 races back at Monmouth. She didn't get much play that day. She was really not very good. But in her most recent race, she got her confidence back, or at least I got my confidence back in her
Right.
when she won at Parks and had won the race that she'd won the previous. And I'm thinking maybe she's now back to where she is, Jeremy. And I think if she runs back to that Parks race last month, she can build on that and come back and win again.
Well, let's go to Chris Griffith's call of the race from Parks, the Dr. James Penny Memorial that you're talking about, to see in action last time out, Princess Grace.
Princess Grace reaches the top of the lane and she kicks on and she's got plenty. Princess Grace is now 2 lengths in front. Flirting Bridge is unleashed down the center of the course outside of Love in the Air. Princess Grace is still finding more approach to the 16th. Just has to hold off Flirting Bridge, who gets closer. But Princess Grace goes back to back, wins the Grade 3 and the newest millionaire in horse racing. Princess Grace with a dominating victory over Flirting Bridge.
You know, Jeff, when you see a field of 5, a lot of times you think these races can kind of be cat and mouse games and be manipulated up front if there's not much pace. I don't see a lot of pace in here. I think Princess Grace goes to the lead like she did at Parks last time. Family Way has one of those cut and paste resumes, I like to say. If you look at her last 4 races, she's run almost the identical trip. She'll probably try to sit second in here. And then the closers are Rougier and Lily Pond. You know, at 1 mile and 1/8, the distance of this race is truncated, usually 1 mile and 3/16 when it was formerly run at Arlington Park. Now at Churchill Downs, because of the configuration of the track, they'll go at 1 mile and 1/8 for the Beverly D. I think that helps horses like Princess Grace and Family Way, and I think those 2 are going to control it up front.
I think so, and although Princess Grace isn't necessarily a front runner, she's more of a sit in the middle and kick it home. She did win on the lead at Parks. That was good. My only concern is I don't know what kind of course we're dealing with here, Jeremy. Maybe
Well, nobody does.
You can give me some insight. Of course, when they had this thing going, they rebuilt it and had it during the spring. speed was not good at all. I mean, the closers won everything. So we're going to have to go to school a little bit here. But I do think Princess Grace, in her the fact that her buyer number improved 11 points between her comeback race, which was her first race since last November, and then her next start, which was the one we just saw. I'm hoping that because she's had a couple of really nice breezes at Fairhill since that race, that she's going to step forward yet again from Michael Stidham. So regardless of how the pace scenario shapes up, I'm going to go with Princess Grace. And you're right, it's going to be a tactical race, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see who's where. Because I mean, all the jocks are going to be looking around trying to find out where everybody else is. Princess Grace can be the controlling speed if she wants to be.
The Arlington Million moving its tack, if you will, to Churchill Downs for the first time and renewed for the first time in 2 years, not run last year as Arlington Park shuttered by Churchill Downs. Now Churchill keeps the Arlington Million in its back pocket to run in Louisville in a special one-day program on Saturday. Jeff Siegel with me, Jeremy Plonk, as we preview the Arlington Million. Jeff, the Arlington Million is a race that's not like it has been in the past. And as we take a look at this year's field for the Arlington Million, the thing you're going to notice in the absentees are the Europeans here. Pretty Kentucky-flavored version of the Arlington Million.
It's $1 million race. It used to be 1.25 miles. This race is in 1.1 miles. That's as far they can run at Churchill based on the configuration of the course. And in looking at this race, and at this again, this might not mean anything, Jeremy, because we're looking at a different type of course and all that at Churchill. But Set Piece, who's won 4 out of 5 over the grass at Churchill, we'll see how he reacts to this newer type of grass course that they're running. But I do like him here, and I like him because he's working really well. This is him with a Wesley Ward team. He's going to rally 3 wide. I think this actually kind of wasn't necessarily planned. You know, that's a very good sprinter in the middle. The rest be red, Overbore on the inside. And Jeremy, I love the way Set Piece breezing through the lane goes by them both. This tells me that he is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, he is. And for those listening to our podcast on the audio version, be sure to check out the video version of our podcast here each week as we include some workout video from XBTV and some race replays as well. Those of you following along on the video see a good work there from Set Piece. And Jeff, I think in this race, which is our Express Bet race of the week, and you can download that on the Express Bet newsletter each week and check it out in the blog section, expressbet.com. I wrote it up as a nice pace setup for Set Piece. I think he gets a lot of speed in this race. You've got Smooth Like Straight and Mega City, who are absolute front runners in here. And I think Mega City, Smooth Like Straight are probably best right around the mile. So they're extending to the 1 1/8, whereas the 1 1/4 and longer horse is kind of cutting back. You know, this race should set up for them pretty well. Set Piece is a horse who's good at 1 mile from off the pace. He's good at a little bit longer distance from off the pace. I think he gets a great setup. He gets to save ground. Then they're going to run on the hedge, which is a different scenario for the Arlington Million than it'll be for the Beverly D earlier in the card, where a temporary rail is going to be out. The turf course at Churchill Downs has not been used since early June. At the end of the racing meet at Churchill in the spring, they scrapped turf racing because the course was not taking hold. They still don't think the course is taking hold the way they want it to be, because there were supposed to be 4 turf races. The Secretariat and other races to pucker up were supposed to be on this card. They were canceled because they don't think they can handle 4 turf races in a day. There's only going to be 2 turf races on Saturday. So how the course plays is going to be very interesting. The fact that the rail will be out for the Beverly D means the course will be untouched on the inside when they run the Arlington Million, and down on the hedge, Set Piece, you know he's going to get clean turf down there. It's just a matter of what kind of trip that he gets from well off the pace. But I like Set Piece in here. Sacred Life's in the race for Chad Brown. Smooth Like Straight, a horse you know very well from the West Coast. And Michael McCarthy shipped this horse around the country. He's run well at Keeneland as well. Outside of Set Piece, Jeff, where do you see the major threats in this year's Arlington Million?
Well, Smooth Like Straight is a quality horse. He just hasn't been able to win very often lately, and he's running well. But that last 16th of a mile, those last 50 yards seems to get to him. So, but in looking at Set Pace, one thing I'd like the viewers to do if they have time is to go back and watch the Forbidden Apple. He was 5th that day, beaten 3 1/4 lengths. That was his most recent start. that race coming off a win in the dinner party at Pimlico. And poor Set Piece, he was absolutely buried behind horses from the top of the stretch to the late stretch, and he had nowhere to go, and he was blocked. And when he finally got clear, he really quickened. So he had plenty of run. He was just too late. So actually, Set Piece ran just as well in the Forbidden Apple as he had done in the dinner party. And with clear sailing in this race, I really think Set Piece is gonna get up there. So that's a major play. And he's 4-1 in the morning line for me. I will take it.
I'm with you on that. I've got him and maybe Smooth Like Straight underneath in the exacta, but build off that win bet. I think Set Piece is going to be good value to play straight up in the win pool. And if you're betting Saturday, the Churchill Downs card includes $10,000 in hit and split promotions when you play on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms. That means if you hit the late pick 4, the middle pick 4, or the late pick 5, there's going to be extra cash in your account. Not only will you get the pari-mutuel winnings, but you'll split with other winners just on the First Bet and Express Bet platforms who also hit. The late pick 4 on Saturday at Churchill that includes the finale, the Arlington Million, is a $5,000 hit and split in the late pick 4. Again, only when you play on First Bet and Express Bet. Good incentives to play on the platforms there. Also, $2,500 hit and splits on Churchill's middle pick 4 Saturday and their late pick 5. Again, that late pick 5 will conclude with the Arlington Million, which will be the final race on the card. As we proceed through the Express Bet First Call podcast this week, we're going to switch from Arlington over to Saratoga. The Saratoga Special for the 2-year-olds is the first of 2 stakes races on Saturday at the Spa. And as we've seen many times this season, I will just copy and paste this line. 5 go in this stakes race at Saratoga. It seems like 5 is the magic word. They're putting basketball teams together, Jeff. I joked earlier this week, it's like some of the fields look like the Globetrotters, but they bet like the Washington Generals for the basketball analogy. Tough betting races, and this is no different as we get to the Saratoga Special, where there are 2 standout showdown horses that we want to see from Churchill Downs in this race at Saratoga. It's Damon's Mountain, the 2, and Gulfport, the 4. This is kind of one of those showdowns that's been brewing since the 4th of July weekend, and we get it about 2 months later at Saratoga. But Damon's Mound, Gulfport, the 2 most impressive spring-summer 2-year-olds at Churchill Downs. We get to see them head-to-head. Your thoughts on the Saratoga Special?
Both are good colts, but Gulfport's got a maiden win and then a win in the Bashford Manor, whereas Damon's Mound has that one runaway 12-length maiden win, and that's it. And so he's stepping up, whereas Gulfport has already had that benefit of a second start, and this was it. This was really impressive, Jeremy, not so much because he earned the 91 Byron number, but he did it drawing away, acting like a colt who will run on, and being by Uncle Mo, he absolutely should. Hand-ridden in the final 16th of a mile, not really being persevered with, and still opening up at will. Terrific performance for trainer Steve Asmussen. And Jeremy, the gallop out was just as good.
Yeah, I mean, he's a horse who finished through the wire here going 6 furlongs. 6 furlongs that early in the year is a pretty good trip for a 2-year-old in July. So now the 6.5 becomes an even more taxing situation for some of these 2-year-olds. And so he's already equipped at the 6 furlong trip. So is Damon's Mound. To me, Jeff, I just can't see it being anybody other than these 2. Valentin Day has already had a couple shots in stakes company for Rudy Rodriguez. Didn't do anything there. And interesting, Valentin Day is the only 2-year-old from the NYRA circuit in the Saratoga Special. Something just doesn't feel right about that, Jeff Siegel. I mean, of all the great trainers on the NYRA circuit and all the great races, Belmont, the Tremont, and the 2-year-old races, why are we not seeing any New York 2-year-olds in this Saratoga Special? Nothing from Pletcher, nothing from any of the big barns.
That surprised me. Yeah, you would think that they would they're where they're based, and yet I know Gulfport and Damon's Mound are pretty salty on paper, and maybe these trainers don't want to hook seasoned or talented or proven 2-year-olds like that this quick. And I haven't seen a 2-year-old anyway at Saratoga that has completely blown me away, at least in terms of surefire stardom. but Gulfport has, and actually Damon's Mound did too. Visually, he was as impressive as you could possibly be, breaking his maiden. These two colts are a cut above. I do prefer Gulfport. I like where he's drawn outside. He can kind of control the race. It is Joel. He can go. There's not that much speed in the race. Super Chow on the rail probably will bust out the Gulfstream Invader. But this is a whole different level of competition than what he saw when he broke his maiden. And if Gulfport continues to impress, being by Uncle Mo, there's no doubt he won't run on. So this seems like a logical spot for him, and I think he's got a chance to be extraordinary, and we'll see how good he is in this race.
An advantage Gulfport that he gets to run out of his home stall. He's not, accustomed to the Saratoga track. He's been training across the street at the Oklahoma training track, but he gets to walk out of his stall and go over for the race. Damon's Mound has been stabled down at Colonial Downs with Michelle Lovell's string in Virginia, has, vanned up to Saratoga to get acclimated a couple days out, but it's a home game for Gulfport. It's a road game for Damon's Mound. They get to meet on what would look on paper to be a neutral site at Saratoga, but again, this is much more of a home game for Gulfport. Next up on the Saratoga program on Saturday will be the 4-Star Dave, Grade 1 for turf milers here, and we're going to rinse and repeat. We've got a field of 5 at Saratoga for the Grade 1 4-Star Dave. Jeff Casa Creed down on the inside, front run the Fed. We've got Regal Gloria in here, the mare back against the boys. Her stablemate Mason for Chad Brown, and Get Smoking the Speedster on the outside for trainer Mark Cassie. Give us your thoughts on the 4-Star Dave, Jeff.
Regal Gloria is 6-5 in the morning line. A lot of ones next to her name. Boy, has she gotten good at age 6, Jeremy. She's won her last 4. She's got triple-digit buyers in 4 out of her last 5 starts, and she's a perfect 3 for 3 at Saratoga. That's why she's 6-5, even though she's tackling the boys. And Mason, her stablemate, is pretty darn good himself. Yeah. He's won his last 2, not quite as fast on figs as Regal Glory, but Regal Glory is winning the Just a Game. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, Regal Glory, if she runs back to that race on Belmont Stakes Day, she's going to be very tough to beat. Let's give the fans a look at this on our video version of the podcast. And the audio folks will get the call of John Embrial.
Legs galore in Italian. They are heads apart. They've got 7 lengths on Regal Glory, who's getting closer now in 3rd. Wakanaka's moving up on the outside. Speak of the Devil is the trailer down at the heads. 3/4 went in 1:08 and 4. And here is In Italian to take over. And here is Regal Glory, who's now kicking in on the outside. In Italian, Regal Glory surges to the front now. Regal Glory in front. Then Wakanaka, and In Italian, it is Regal Glory. Impressive to win the Grade 1. Longines, Just a Game.
Jeff, there was a 2-way speed duel that really set up nicely in that one for Regal Glory. It's not going to be quite as obvious on paper in this one, but Get Smoking is plenty of good speed, so there's going to be an honest tempo to it, just not maybe that drag-out duel that they saw in the Just the Game that really set up. If it's not a setup, does Regal Glory still have the best chance to win this? Just, pace be damned?
Well, I still think she's the one to beat, but you're right. She had it set up for her in that last race with the fast pace. But if you look at her form, she's actually pretty versatile. She can go to the front if it's slow. She can sit back and make a run. She can adapt to any kind of pace scenario, whether it's 45 or 48. It doesn't seem to matter. And I do think she'll have a target or a couple of targets to run with for sure. Get Smoking for sure. Mason likes to lay fairly close. I don't know what Casa Creed's going to do coming out of sprints, but he doesn't seem to have any real gate tactical speed. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I think Regal Glory could easily just draft in and sit 3rd here and be where she wants to be. But I do think that she's just better than these, regardless of how it sets up. Whether or not she's worth 6-5 on the morning line, and whether you want to take a short price on that, that's a different story. But I'd kind of like to see her win. She's had only 3 starts this year. She's still relatively fresh. Obviously, she seems to be training well. I do think Regal Glory will find a way.
Yeah, and I don't see it as an intra-race bet because I think probably Mason for Chad's the other one. You're looking at a very skinny exacta. Right. For me, this is a race where you just take Regal Glory probably as the single and the multi-race bets and try to get through this leg and enjoy it as a fan. That's a wrap for our stakes this Saturday at Saratoga. More Del Mar coming up in a moment.
They're off.
At Del Mar on Saturday, pair of stakes races, including the Yellow Ribbon and the Sorrento for the 2-year-old fillies. We'll start things off with the Yellow Ribbon. This is in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf Division, 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course. They'll start in that infield chute and make the one quick left-hand turn coming out of the elbow, and then one circuit around the track there at Del Mar for these older fillies and mares running for $250,000. Grade 2 purse. Field of 7 in here, Jeff, and Going Global is certainly a filly who's been in good form for a while now. We'll talk in a moment about whether or not she's going to maintain that form, but she's won 2 over 3 at Del Mar, and she's going to get some pace in here. I think there's some, decent pace with Park Avenue, Javanica. There's some horses who want to go to the front in here, and she'll probably get a reasonably good pace setup. Your thoughts on the Yellow Ribbon?
Well, I was looking at Going Global and thinking, well, okay, this is a field she's supposed to beat and all that, and she's proven at Del Mar, and she's won 8 out of 14. This was the work we had at Del Mar, and she's actually working inside Burgoo Alley, who is also in this race. She's part of that 2-horse team chasing the one in the front. And you can see her, she's not being asked at all, but neither is Burgoo Alley. I didn't see there was much difference in the two here. They kind of finish heads apart, both under a nice hold. Burgoo Alley is going to go to the outside of that front horse. Going Global is going to dive to the rail, and they're both finishing out really well. So I think Burgoo Alley has always been a good workhorse, but Going Global's resume is much better. The thing that stops me from believing that Going Global is a mortal cinch, even though, again, she looks like she's back on the beam there, was that she was 80 cents in the dollar in the Gamely back in late May, and I didn't think she could lose that race. And not only did she not win it, but she didn't really have any excuse. And I just wondered whether or not she's taken a backward step. I mean, she's now a 4-year-old. Her form as a 3-year-old was terrific, but I was a little bit let down by that race. This was a good work, and I guess, you'd have to expect her to bounce back and all that. But as a very short price favorite, I'm just not sure whether this is the kind of 6-5 that I want to take. Whereas the one in New York, I would, but we'll see. I mean, she's back with Rispoli, who won on her 2 races back in the Royal Heroine. And I thought that was a good race, but she was kind of straight as a string to beat Javanica that day. She didn't do it like I thought she was going to do it, like under wraps. So I don't know. This race isn't quite the slam dunk that I think on paper that it may look like. And that, she's good enough that she's probably going to win again.
I get the sneaky suspicion Javanica's run a good race in here. I think she's got some early speed if asked to use it. And in that elbow start where they start, on the inside in the turf and come down, they've got to make that left-hand turn. Inside speed's good there because it's almost like a 3-turn race. You get a little advantage. If that's worth 1.5 lengths, 2 lengths coming off that bend there, as you straighten out and the others kind of, round it off. That can be useful to her. So I like that. I don't think Avenue de France in the 1 hole or the 2 Going Global has any speed. So Javanica is the fastest from the inside, from the 3 hole. I think she gets to square that off coming off that elbow, and that's worth 1.5 lengths, 2 lengths. And maybe, just maybe, this is her race. I would like her a lot more if Park Avenue wasn't in the field, because Park Avenue's got really good speed. So that's somebody who's going to push her to get the mile on the 16th. But Javanica, if Park Avenue doesn't break, or heaven forbid something happens and Park Avenue has to scratch, that would really move Javanica up. But I like her chances in here. I think she's going to run a sneaky good race, and she was the beaten favorite last time in an allowance. I mean, her form doesn't scream wake up, but I just think situationally this could be a spot where she wakes up.
Well, she's 12-1 in the morning line, Jeremy, so she's got the price that you like. So that's even if she doesn't win, you can probably use her somewhere underneath.
Saturday's co-feature at Del Mar is the Sorrento Stakes, 6 furlongs for the 2-year-old fillies. We could be talking Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies with horses out of the Sorrento. Yes, it's only a 6-furlong sprint, but this time of year it's springboard time, and they'll go Del Mar Debutante and to Chandelier and those kind of races at Santa Anita in the fall, and maybe to the Breeders' Cup. Certainly the history of the Sorrento says that we could get a Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies type runner out of this lineup. Sorrento is at 6 furlongs, as we said, grade 2, $200,000. $100,000. The field does 7. Jeff, I think we're both landing on the same horse here, and we don't have to get far down the program page to find her. Procrastination. She really impressed me in that first start at Los Alamitos, and I thought she had a good work since.
She really has, and she won that race at Los Al, coming in the last 8th and 11-2. That's what I want to see. And she since then came back and worked out of the gate. This work just August the 6th. So we're talking about a week ago. She's on the outside. And again, what she does here in this workout is that last 8th from the 7/8 pole to the 3/4 pole. Very impressive. Now she's in front here on the outside as we watch the work, about a neck in front, but under a nice hold and just kind of cruising around there. And then once she hits that 7/8 pole and switches leads to the left lead and then goes on that turn, still under wraps, but she really does pick it up here, Jeremy. And this is what I like about this. That last actually 16th of a mile is what really turns my head. She's going to open up, and although she was pulled up after a half, I mean, she probably galloped out 3/4 and 12. So, I mean, this is a good work, and now it's just a matter of trying to overcome any trouble she may have from the rail.
You know, I'm not one to get giddy about Los Alamitos debut winners. It's kind of a quirky track. The competition's not as strong as we see at Santa Anita during, similar times of the year. So you got to kind of take the win with a grain of salt by 8 lengths last time. But trainer Michael McCarthy looks like he's got a good one here. They went back to that gate work, and Jeff, they didn't know at the time of that gate work that they were going to draw the rail for this race. But anytime you got a young 2-year-old on the rail for the first time, you're looking for some experience. The fact that she popped out of the gate clean and sharp in that work and then still finished up, the finish was even better. But she got out of the gate nice and clean. That was good to see. That's probably good fortune on their part that they went back to a gate work after the career debut, since she ended up drawing the rail. That could be maybe their first win of the weekend came in just scheduling that workout as they did.
Well, if you look at this field too, I mean, the 6, and none of them really have any early speed. I mean, it's even though she was on the lead at Los Al, so she's got some speed for sure. But the rest of this group, I mean, they're just kind of slow early. So yeah. I'm looking for procrastination to get a good position from the rail. If she breaks, she might even find herself in front. And again, a daughter of Not This Time, who's to me been a surprisingly, shockingly terrific stallion. He was a good racehorse, don't get me wrong, but you wouldn't have looked at him as being any kind of surefire major stallion. But he's gotten good young horses, good fillies, and this filly, the way she trains and the way she won her first start, I would be very surprised if she doesn't come right back and win it again. There's another filly in the race, Absolutely Zero, who's already a stakes winner, daughter of Nyquist. She won both of her starts at Santa Anita, including a race called the Fasig Tipton Futurity. But her buyer numbers are in the 60s, and she actually lost a point between her maiden win and her second start. So she's good, but I don't know how good she really is. She might just have been in the right spot at the right time at Santa Anita. But I do think procrastination has got a chance to be real, and we'll find out how real she is in the Sorrento.
Interesting thing about Absolutely Zero, she was entered in the Calbred Filly Stakes last week, scratched for this spot. Usually I like that boldness, right? They didn't take the easier spot. They went for the bigger spot. There could also have been a lot of words circulating that there wasn't much showing up for the Sorrento, and this is a chance to get graded type on the resume of a 2-year-old filly right off the bat with just a field of 7. But Absolutely Zero, a stakes winner. Vegas Magic, also a stakes winner from Pleasanton. So an experienced field to take on procrastination, but she looks like the rising star to both Jeff and I in the Sorrento on Sunday at Del Mar.
They're off.
Let's go to Saratoga Sunday card, where the Mahoney Stakes is the feature race on the program. The Mahoney, named for the first family of Tote, the founders of AM Tote, the Mahoney family. And Saratoga honored them with the stakes race last year. Comes back on the schedule this year for the Turf Sprinters. And Jeff, one of the horses we've talked about a lot in our podcast, whether it's on First Call with our previews or on the It's Official program, where we reviewed some outstanding performances from each weekend. Big Invasion. We've talked about him a lot, and we keep thinking he's going to show up in one of these big races somewhere, but he kind of shows up in another middling one.
He just won a grade 3. Now he's dropping into a listed stakes and actually dropping in class. But I think Christophe Clement is saying, I'm just going to keep winning races. As long as I keep riding these $150,000 turf sprints restricted to 3-year-olds.
Just 3-year-olds.
I'm just going to take it, And why not? I mean, again, he got beat in his debut at Gulfstream, finished second, but that was back in January. And then since then, he's done nothing but win 5 in a row. And his Bayern numbers continue to rise with every start. Most recently in the quick call, he earned a 100 Bayern number. And he's won on moderate paces. He's won on fast paces. He likes to sit, in the second flight and blast home. And he did that in the quick call.
The field is in the stretch. Surprise boss, run Curtis run, and big invasion on the outside. The half, 43 and 4/5 seconds. Here comes Big Invasion now to take over the lead. It is Big Invasion in front, and his winning streak continues. He's won 5 in a row, and the final time on the board, 1 minute, 0.80 seconds. A couple of ticks off the course record.
Now he'll get some international intrigue for the first time, where editorial comment, the 4-horse, comes from Brazil for trainer Kenny McPeak. This is a horse, or Argentina, I should say, horse who's won 3 in a row in Argentina, including at the Group 3 and Group 2 level. Kenny's had a little success over the years bringing horses up from South America. We'll see what he's got with editorial comment, giving the leg up to a good turf sprint jockey and Luis Saez. And then down on the rail, the international invader for Aiden or Joseph O'Brien is Catamosto. Catamosto will get Tyler Gaffleone riding. This is a horse whose run, Darley July Cup was well blasted in that one of the top sprint races in Europe at 30-1. Where might this horse fit in the U.S., Jeff?
Well, he's been unplaced in his last 4 starts. A couple of those races were big fields, but I want to see a Joseph O'Brien horse run well first at Saratoga before I jump on that bandwagon. Mm-hmm. So I really do think Big Invasion is for real. I understand what Christophe's doing. I've been clamoring for him to stretch this colt out, being by declaration of war out of a mare by Curlin. But in watching him run, he actually is kind of a short striding horse. I think Christophe knows what he's doing by keeping this horse around one turn, Big Invasion. Let him be what he's best at, and this is what it is. Don't mess up anything. As long as you're going to keep winning, just keep doing what you're doing. I don't see anybody in here that can touch him, assuming that Big Invasion is going to run back. He runs so many good races in a row. He's back within less than a month, but he had a bullet blowout over the training track since that race. I would imagine he's going to fire his best shot once again, and I think it's just a matter of Big Invasion showing up and doing what he does best, and this is what he does.
We thought we'd see him in one of those big money 6-7 figure races at Kentucky Downs, the way he had been going, but now this race towards the middle to second half of the season at Saratoga almost questions you whether he's going to end up at Keeneland in the fall, if he's going to try something on the turf in the Keeneland fall meet, maybe before the Breeders' Cup Sprint, if they think they have a Breeders' Cup horse in the 3-year-old Big Invasion. The timing of this race almost cancels out Kentucky Downs in my mind. Yeah,
that's not going to be in the plans. And I think maybe Christophe thinking it takes a unique horse to win at Kentucky Downs, even though the purses are incredible. But yeah. I think maybe the fact that he's keeping him here, not throwing that curveball of Kentucky Downs at him, maybe he is thinking Breeders' Cup. And why, just let him do what he's doing. And I think you're right. If he's going to have another race between now and Breeders' Cup, it'll be most likely at Keeneland. And that's the safe way of going. And I tell you, the way he continues to run and the style and all that, I would not put it past Big Invasion to be very competitive against the older horses, even against the toughest older horses we have. I know we've got Golden Pound, those kind of horses, but Big Invasion, by that time, he might be just as good.
He's a really promising 3-year-old, and we always just talk about the dirt routers, when it comes to the 3-year-old division. Sometimes we get a good 3-year-old turfer. Sometimes we get a good 3-year-old sprinter. But a 3-year-old turf sprinter is really niche, and it's hard to get nationally excited about. But Big Invasion seems like a 3-year-old in this crop who's got a future. I think he's really a talented horse. Our final stakes race to preview this week on the First Bet and Express Bet First Call podcast is the Best Pal, coming up Sunday at Del Mar. Best Pal, a Breeders' Cup Juvenile Division prep, 6 furlongs. This is the prep locally for the Del Mar Futuri, which will come up in September this year at the end of the meet. And then potentially on to 2-turn racing in the American Pharoah at Santa Anita for some of these West Coast 2-year-olds who may have aspirations towards the Breeders' Cup. We've got a field of 11, and we didn't have to go double digits and use some of the two-digit saddle cloths much this weekend in the stakes ranks, Jeff Siegel. But we've got a field of 11 two-year-olds. Bob Baffert has just one in here. Typically, you're seeing Bob Baffert loaded this time of year with the two-year-olds. He's slow to gather with his two-year-olds after the suspension. They didn't run hardly any two-year-olds at Santa Anita, and so he's kind of going to be a second half two-year-old trainer this year more than a summer two-year-old trainer. But one that he has unveiled at the Del Mar meet already, July 24th, was having a meltdown. And having a meltdown had nothing to look like a meltdown at all. He looked to be well in control in his career debut.
Having a meltdown, Dillinger on the outside, Mr. Iceman between them, Bolt from Heaven trying to run on late. They are homeward bound, having a meltdown, Mr. Iceman, Dillinger on the outside, having a meltdown, digs deep, he finds more, Mr. Iceman, Grain, Dillinger can't go on with it, and having a meltdown, too good. Having a meltdown wins it well. Second was Mr. Iceman, then Dillinger and Pure Fire.
So an outside draw here, 10 of 11, but at 6 furlongs, a good run down the backstretch. And as fast as he looked in the debut, Jeff, and as well as he finished, I don't think the outside post is going to be too much detriment.
Not at all. I mean, this is a really good colt. They gave $200,000, which is a lot of money for a son of uncaptured, but he was impressive in the OBS April sale and during the preview session. Shows up here, trained really well, got knocked down to 6-5, and what looked like on paper to be a rather salty maiden race, and it was. The runner-up has already come back and won very, very nicely to kind of frank that form. And having a meltdown, who showed really good gate speed to get clear in that race. Kind of relaxed midway, and then when challenged into the stretch, gave you that second move that you love to see with a two-year-old. Last 8 and 11-4, galloped out really well, trained very well since. Really good colt. I don't know if he's the best that Bob's got. He's certainly the best we've seen so far. Now, Bob's going to have some two-year-olds run over the weekend in maiden races that are supposed to be really good as well. You never know when the next champion might show up. But as of right now, this colt is the best of the lot, and I see no reason why he won't come right back and win again. And win, quite frankly, I'll be disappointed if he doesn't win impressively.
Yeah, and look, the question is, he's the Mr. Right Now, right? I mean, he is the horse for this weekend. Is he Baffert's horse for the future? Highly unlikely. He's out of a the damn sire's a sprinter, put it back. $6,000 stallion, uncaptured, $6,000 sire fee, and the horse brought $200,000. So as a 2-year-old, when you see that in a horse purchase, they're now buys, right? These are the horses who are work fast, and you're supposed to get an immediate return on them. That's working to plan right now with having a meltdown. They got the debut win at Del Mar. Now they're lined up for the $200,000 Best Pal as a favorite. Graded stakes, black type probably goes on his resume right away. And what happens after that, not necessarily gravy, because the Del Mar Futurity at 7 furlongs will then be obviously puts him in grade 1 company for a bigger purse. But beyond the Del Mar Futurity at 7 furlongs, now you start to wonder about a horse like this, how far he'll go, and will he be a future horse, or is he just really put together well now? And that's how he was able to garner that $200,000 price tag with very modest breeding in April. So having a meltdown is the horse for today, and he's certainly the horse for Sunday. Anybody else in that Best Pal field, Jeff, that you want to throw out there maybe for some exotics consideration?
Actually, they're all kind of in the same boat. A lot of these horses either are maidens, they're first-time starters, or they're maiden winners with low numbers. Right. It really isn't any. There's nothing in here. The fastest horse on Figs, other than having a meltdown, is Kangaroo Court, who's drawn right to the outside of him, and he showed good speed and got beat a half length, earned a 73 Beyer number, which is only 7 points less than what having a meltdown earned. So he's a maiden drawn outside, going to get a good trip. And maybe what he might do is keep having a meltdown busy during the first part of that race. He's pretty quick. On the other hand, because he is drawn outside, they might try to grab him a little bit and maybe stalk the pace and then see if he'll finish. But a Dad's Cap Gelding, who cost $7,500 at the Arizona November sale, I'm not sure that they've got Breeders' Cup intentions with Kangaroo Court. Tim Yakteen trying to get it while he can, as with this horse. He might, depending on how aggressive they are early, he might be able to kind of stalk and then maybe hang on for second. But in looking at where the threat comes from. I just don't see it. Now, our man is a Simon Callahan colt who broke his maiden at Churchill Downs first time out. He came from slightly off the pace. Maybe he's okay. He could be. He's from the first crop of Bolt to Oro, down in the 2-hole with no early speed or lacking of early speed. I don't know what kind of trip he's going to get. And I think it's promising that Marty Garcia flies out to ride him. So maybe there's a colt that there are ambitions with him as well. But I'm very much expecting having a Meltdown to win. You're right. If he wins this race, the Del Mar Futurity is next, and then, like I say, there's some Bob Baffert horses that are running this weekend that are going to be maybe in that race as well. But they're making their first start. It's always interesting at Del Mar and Saratoga to see when the newcomers come out. I know there's a couple of hot maiden races at Saratoga this weekend as well. We may have something to talk about on our Tuesday show about new fresh faces in the 2-year-old division.
Yeah, we'll check it out on It's Official every Tuesday. Also want to let you know on Sunday, the Long Acres Mile will be renewed in Washington State at Emerald Downs, the Long Acres Mile. We've got some promos for that day. Money back special on the Emerald Downs card. $10 money back special when you bet with First Bet and Express Bet. Any race on the Long Acres Mile card day at Emerald Downs. If your win bet finishes second or third, you get up to $10 in your bet refunded back into your account in the form of wagering credit. So be sure to check out the Long Acres Mile card on Sunday at Emerald Downs. And John White, the Dean of Pacific Northwest Racing and our Dean of Bloggers with ExpressBet, he's got his weekly submission. Its post-time blog includes not only a look back at last week's Breeders' Cup future wager for the Classic Division and his thoughts on how that all shook down, he also takes a look at Sunday's edition of Emerald Downs 8th race, the Long Acres Mile, with his picks. He's taking background on top in the Long Acres Mile, so a little extra handicapping help this week from John. Jeff, we've got a really big week of racing. Want to let fans know about the promos we've got at ExpressBet and First Bet as well. We mentioned that money back special going at Emerald Downs. Those hit and splits at Churchill Downs on Saturday, totaling $10,000 between the middle pick 4, the late pick 4, and the late pick 5. Also at Canterbury, it's at Canterbury Park. It's Made in Minnesota night on Saturday. So multiple stakes races for the Minnesota breds, and there's $5,000 in First Bet and ExpressBet hit and splits on the early pick 4 and the pick 5. And at Canterbury on Saturday, we also have a handicapping tournament. So be sure to check that out if you're into the handicapping contest scene. The Made in Minnesota handicapping tournament final. We had a couple feeder tournaments where people qualified earlier this week, but you can certainly enter at full price and play into that one. The Made in Minnesota handicapping tournament Saturday at expressbet.com only. Remember, you can only play the tournaments at expressbet.com. Jeff, big weekend. It all gets started tonight with the Dan Patch on Friday night for the harness fans out there at Hoosier Park. And, of course, Saratoga, Del Mar, and that curveball Arlington Million Day at Churchill Downs. Your final thoughts?
Good racing this weekend. Hopefully we'll be making some money. I've got about 50 workouts I have to watch videos for, so I'll be reporting on that in my analysis at Del Mar and Saratoga. I'll be watching those workouts and timing them and writing them up. So that'll be on our blog tomorrow.
All right, plenty of hard work for Jeff still to go. Go get a throat lozenge, get back to work, and get set for a big weekend of racing. Of course, Ellis Park Derby on Sunday as well. You can watch and wager on that at First Bet and Express Bet. On behalf of everybody across the First family and Jeff Siegel, my partner, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great racing week, and we'll see you on Tuesday on It's Official when we make the 5 biggest topics of the weekend all official because Jeff Siegel says so. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
We're ready for the start. They're off.